Hey, how is everybody doing today? We're a couple minutes late, but we wanted to give people time to tune in. My name is JC, and I'm your host here at Hangar Ready, and I'd like to introduce our panel this evening. First up is Namidius. How are you doing, Nam?
I'm doing good.
Good. Nam is our senior director in charge of CIM, our Commerce, Industry, and Manufacturing. Also with us tonight is Havoc. Havoc, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, running around with my head cut off a little bit, but otherwise good.
Havoc helped manage his first Marine training since coming back, and Havoc is one of the OGs that helped start the org. And honestly, it's mostly his fault that ADI exists. And certainly last, but certainly not least, is Duma, our artist and crafter and wizard extraordinaire. How are you doing this evening?
My wand's over there. I don't have it right now.
You got the beard for it.
You got the beard for it.
Howdy, everybody.
So we've been whittling down the Squadron, the CitizenCon stuff for the last couple of weeks and been talking about this stuff. And we're at it again tonight. Hopefully we're going to get through the last of our questions, comments, suggestions, that kind of stuff about what happened at CitizenCon. So, the big thing that I want to talk about or start the night off is deep space dilemmas, engaging with the universe's complex mechanics, and in particular, navigating ship systems. And so, Dema, you were there on site. Given the depth and complexity of ship operations, from battery backups to relay systems, how might this detailed intricacies impact player engagement and immersion in comparison to other space simulators?
Yeah, man. If you had dreamt about being an engineer on a ship in Star Citizen, man, this was for you. This sitcon was for you. Like, the UI that they showed and the fine-tuned ability to go into the systems and do all these, like, see everything visually, the doors, the relays, fuses, which give you hints of like who's on your ship, where they are. Take a stab at that. It's going to be incredible.
I agree completely. It's, that immersion and the complications that come from it. And, Nam, you guys are going to fly a lot of these larger ships for commerce and cargo and mining and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. What impacts do you see this level of complexity having on your moneymakers in an organization playing the game?
It's a lot more to plan for. I mean, one thing, look at mining is a good example of how CIG goes about these things. There's the degree of detail and complexity in the mining mechanic. They're going to take that same mindset. That's going to be engineering. It's not just going to be a simple wave of magic beam weapon and everything's fixed. There's going to be more to it than that. And it's going to require a fair amount of planning and practice to be good at it. But that's a good thing. Like, compared to other games, I think you say that compared to other space simulations, this thing's gonna, when all these different pieces come together, it's going to be way beyond most everything else out there. And being able to get a cohesive group of people together who know how each other works, that just takes time. But it's going to be I think it's going to be very rewarding in the long run. To get to that point.
Let's go back to Duma real quick. Duma, we're getting reports that people can't hear you. Can you say something real quick to see if they
microphone check 1 2. Who is this?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think we're good. I think Terrafon is just having a brain fart or something. So
it's on your end, Terra.
Yeah, it's on your end, Terrafon. Havoc, from the combat perspective, having to maintain all this equipment and things, how do you see that impacting engagement from players and compare it to other space simulations like Starfield in your mind?
Oh man, I don't think on the case of Star Citizen versus Starfield, it's gonna vary many different ways. Like the level of engineering that you can do in Star Citizen when they get to this point is gonna be leaps and bounds different than any other space sim I've ever played. Elite Dangerous didn't do it. Starfield didn't even get close. I think it's going to spark a lot of people's interest to be a crew member on a large ship rather than just go out in the verse with their own ship and fly and shoot. I think it's going to really interest people in doing things like engineering gameplay, hacking gameplay. You know, when we eventually get to that point, I think it's going to be pretty huge, honestly.
I agree. I think it's going to be bigger than most people think. I think you
Yeah.
can, under best of circumstances, you probably can navigate by yourself. But under a lot of circumstances, I think you're going to be in a situation where if bad things start to happen, being by yourself is going to be real dangerous. Now, with the multi-crew gameplay emphasizing both the challenges and opportunities, how do you anticipate player-to-player actions in evolving as everyone becomes more adept at their roles aboard a ship? And what ships in particular do you see where having crew is going to be a necessity in the commerce space?
Well, obviously, the larger it gets, but I think it's hard to say on that. I mean, because it's kind of like we don't really have a good handle on that now. But because right now everybody still wants to just solo run their car. They want to solo their CAD or their C2 everywhere and trying to avoid having to split that pay. So, but it's, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think a good answer there, but I don't know if there is a good answer right now until we
Well,
see more of that
We're
mechanic.
going to need to see more, but how do you envision it impacting gameplay once these mechanics start to come in? Do you see it pushing people?
Pushing
towards-
multiplay is what it's going to do.
You do see
It's
that.
going to push these people out of their comfort space, of flying solo cargo to actually playing it as it's intended, which is on these ships that get over a certain size. You need to have turret gunners. You need to have people flying protection, and engineers. You know, as we talked about last time, as these ships get over a certain size, the engineering and maintenance challenge is going to increase very fast as the ships get larger.
Well,
You know, adding more and more nodes and components to have to be maintained, wear and tear, wearing all of that down.
so as we
So-
look at ships that have more than 400 SCU of cargo, which one do you see as probably being the most complex to maintain?
Well,
Most need of extra crew, I guess.
most need of extra crew. I mean, which one? You know, kind of in that
Anything
range. You're
above
talking
400
what? The
SCU.
Caterpillar, or the C2.
Sure, that would also include the Carrack,
Hmm.
Caterpillar,
Okay.
C2, Ulcy.
Yeah,
The hull-
the Carrack's an interesting one because of the way the ship's laid out. Engineering's
but
way
it's
at
not
the
purely
bottom.
a cargo vessel, though.
Well,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it
yeah.
carries
Does
a
a
lot
lot
of
of different
cargo, and
things.
if it's
It
set
does.
up with cargo pods, it carries a lot of cargo.
Something like the C2 is a little more efficient in its layout, so it could be something that you could solo, because when you say, if you took a little bit of damage, maybe you could just put it on autopilot and run back and fix it yourself. But that's a scenario
Yeah, that's
where
going to
like,
work real well.
you need somebody, like, and this is why they're doing this. It really is going to encourage the multiplayer.
Well,
But,
I
yeah,
agree.
as they get
completely.
bigger to like a hull D or a hull E, you're going to
Yeah,
have a
there's
lot
no-
more systems at risk there, and
Well,
they're more
and-
exposed. They're not as protected.
And you've got this 1/4 mile tunnel that you have to crawl through or run down to get to the back. I mean, it's going to be, the C2. My thought process on the C2 is you probably could solo it under optimal situations, but you probably can't solo it if you're in combat at all, because
Mm-mm.
you're not going to want to get out of the pilot seat and fly away from the threat at the same time that stuff is getting damaged in the back. You're going to need somebody to run back there and help. And, I really see that as, that's a soloable ship as long as everything goes perfectly. You get into a Carrack or an 8 or a Caterpillar or something like that, I just do not see how the how you're going to be able to solo that ship at any point. I mean, you have any kind of failure, you're going to have to run so far away that you're going to be completely blind. You could have pirates on your ship before you realize it, just because you're going to have to sit there and fix stuff. Havoc, how do you use? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nam.
That's it. The challenge there is going to be finding that sweet spot, because a lot of these ships, CIG likes to have, okay, they got so many seats for crew, and they're going to try to enforce that through the life support systems, because if you start putting too many people on the ship, that's going to hurt your life support. But they often have way more stations than they have beds in the ship. So finding where that balance is of how many people you actually need to keep that ship functional without stressing your life support and whatever else.
Well,
that's
sure,
that's going to be a challenge.
I don't think any of us are saying you have to have 10 people on these ships. I think
Right.
you're definitely going to want 1 or 2 extra in my mind as they start to implement this stuff. Havoc, how do you see this impacting large ship play from the military perspective? And, how important is it going to be for people to be trained in multiple roles?
I think it's going to be super important. I think it's going to be one of those things that people are going to want to be good at managing the resource network. They're going to want people that are going to be good at tuning. So if you get an engineer that specializes in being a mechanic, being a tuner, and being a resource manager, like very well, and you just have 2 of those guys running around, I think it'd be super efficient that way. And I think that with it going this route and pushing more people to do multi-crew play, I think it's going to create a group of close-knit people that like to play on certain days, and yeah, it's gonna be rough for the guys that are wanting to just solo their ship until they have a system in which they can have AI. But obviously another topic. But yeah, I was going to mention the hull E. With the size of the hull E, we think the hull C is big, and you're going to want some guys to unload that cargo. And with a hull E, you're definitely going to want people to help you unload that cargo. Otherwise, you're doing that all that work by yourself.
Nama, what are your thoughts in this?
Yeah,
space?
so thinking about talking about the bigger ships and this multiplayer scenarios of engineering. I actually watched the Fix It and Fly It video again today, and he was pretty adamant and pointed out that single player ships are not going to be affected by these changes. So, you won't have to worry about power distribution on, single fighters, maybe even the hull A. So I think that approach is spot on, because it gives the person who wants to play by themselves an option, so they don't have to manage all these things, and they can still make money and do what they want to do in the game.
Well, and I agree with you to a certain extent, but while it may not require you to run extra people on your hull A, there's going to be maintenance requirements on your hull A and your smaller ships that
for
you're
sure.
going to have to definitely keep track of. And I think that, I think that's one area that we're kind of overlooking is, there's the maintenance when things go wrong, but there's also the maintenance to keep things from going wrong. And how much impact is that going to have on gameplay? And how much, if I'm an MSR pilot or a hull A pilot or something in that size there that we routinely would view as solo ships, how much of that is going to require me to wear a bunch of different hats or have to pull people in that know to teach me how to do all this other stuff?
Yeah, but one of those ships that you said is not a single player ship. I mean, we might think of it now, but the MSR is not. Whereas the hull A is. I mean, it truly is a starter single player ship.
I don't know if it's technically a starter, but it's definitely a single player ship without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think, part of my concern is the learning curve on the game is going to be so high that having experienced people that you can draw upon to help teach you these different things on all these different ships is going to be critical. I mean, Nam, don't you see that as something that we're going to have to tackle, is, basically having to teach everybody how to do this and where the parts are, and when this error comes up, this is basically where you have to go to fix it?
all this stuff we call common knowledge among us because we've been playing this game for years. But somebody comes in, it's just a fire hose of information coming at them, and they're not, or they don't even know to ask the question when they're dealing with certain things. So yeah, it's getting people trained up on that will be a challenge. And I think one thing CIG's counted on was they were thinking, oh well, they'll learn from playing Squadron 42, but they're not going to get a feel for the for interplay multiplayer stuff from probably most of the engineering playing that game, because it's pretty much focused on being this fighter and a fighter mostly flying single player ships and during those campaigns. So they're definitely going to have to learn that in the PU with us or whoever else they're with.
So, Dumma, I'm going to throw a curveball at you here real quick.
Sure.
And that is, how can people utilize Arena Commander? Do you think they're going to let us utilize Arena Commander to train and learn some of these mechanics in a safe space?
Yeah, I see were you
because something hit the roadmap this week on that.
Oh, really? Go ahead, Nom.
Yeah, in 3.22, they have they're adding maps to Arena Commander for spawning multiplay into Arena Commander maps, and a couple FPS missions that can involve on foot and ships in the area of ground-based outposts in Arena Commander. So there's opportunity there for multi-ship crew play in Arena Commander, and the opportunity to have those operating while there's people on the ground. So that's I haven't really seen that yet, but it looks like they're going to be doing that.
This is something they covered in an ISC actually prior to CitCon, going over being able to spawn into Arena Commander, the multiplayer ships, and spawn directly in as a crew versus a pilot.
I will note that there were a lot of the more interesting large ships that were suspiciously missing from that list of ships that they're going to put in that first version. So hopefully they'll add in some of the bigger ships.
Yeah.
Havoc, how about you? How do you see Arena Commander potentially being used as a training ground for some of these mechanics?
Long term, I don't know if CIG's plans are to keep the engineering gameplay in Arena Commander. I think that we'll probably get access to an experimental mode when they come out with that, but yeah, I don't know exactly what I think precisely what they're gonna do with keep it long term so we can practice in Arena Commander. That would be nice, actually.
It would be, and I think they're going to head that direction. Nom, anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, I'll post a link in our chat for you to see. If you want to post that up, we can. But let me see, find that one on the multi-ship. Oh, multi-crew. Sorry. There. Yeah, posted it in our
Discord channel, guys. That's a quick reminder. Check out the Hangar Ready Discord. You should see the lower third come up at some point and tell you how to get to our Discord channel, and you'll find lots of cool information in the live show. But moving on, AI integration. This was a big talking point during CitizenCon. Dama, I'm going to go with you first. With AI crew members on board capable of performing tasks based on set priorities, how might this shape the balance between solo and multiplayer experiences? Do you think that AI is going to be even capable of performing these tasks like a person?
Oh yeah, for sure. I watched a video this week of a guy who created an AI assistant for his ship, basically turned it in Alexa, and it was doing everything for him. It was awesome. And if this is one person that did this on his own, imagine what a team at CIG could do. So yeah, I think, it depends on where they want to take it. They don't want the game to play itself, but, giving you some, an NPC, the ability to acquire NPCs and have them do things on your ship. If you truly want to stay a single, player and but you want to pilot a larger ship and there's a need for it, they might do that. I don't know. And definitely has the ability to do that with the way AI algorithms are coming along. So,
well, so Havoc, over to you with your experience with AI. AI is really a joke. It's bots. With your experience in Arma around bots, how useful do you think these the AI that they're going to develop? And I'm going to make one comment before we move on to that, and that is, that was a cool Alexa, help me do basic stuff. But what they didn't tell you is it was about $10 worth of API calls to make that happen, that little video. So I don't see CIG giving us that level of sophistication. But Havoc, you and I came up in Arma, and the AI there, or bots, or whatever you want to call them, that were wingmen to you, guys that were fighting with you on the ground, or guys that were flying aircraft. How useful were they? And do you think that the AI, and I use that term lightly, it won't be true AI, but the bots that they'll let us use, how do you think that will stack up against a real life person?
I think that as far as being a good shot, they'll probably be a good shot. And I think that they'll be able to do basic stuff like managing, controlling fires, venting the atmosphere in certain rooms and whatnot. But I don't see them coming even remotely close to what a human player can be trusted with to do, and do so to the level of proficiency that a human player can. I think that they'll have basic capabilities, just not the level of capabilities that you want to have on your multi-crew ship for a long period of time.
And here's my thought on this. I think you're right. I think that they will be able to do a bunch of very useful tasks, but I think you're going to have to tell it to go do the useful task. And that when your situational awareness bucket starts to overflow and you can't think about, oh, I need to tell them to go to this room and fight a fire, or, oh, I need to tell them to switch the electric from this side of the ship to that side, or, shut off that shield generator so we could replace it. That's where they're going to fall flat compared to anything more than a brand new player that's a Muppet. I mean, it's, if the player has any experience, two things are going to happen. One, they're going to start figuring out, hey, to save my bacon, I need to do stuff, even if it's basic stuff. And number two, they're going to query you and go, hey, I'm seeing this red alarm here. What do I need to go do to fix it, to pull you out of your situational awareness tunnel and be more effective? And I just do not see them having the computing power to provide that service to us as players in any meaningful way. Nam, what are your thoughts in this space?
Well, I know they got to give us NPC crewmen because that's been the plan. They don't want them to be too useful because that would go against their push to get us to do multiplay together. But I also see it as there's going to be a bit of the missile problem we have. Missiles are never balanced. Depending on who you talk to, they're either OP or they're worthless. Same thing for the NPCs. How accurate do they make them in the turrets? I mean, are they going to be hit scan, or are they just going to be spraying everywhere? They got to find that median to where they're good enough, or they do get better with time as they do that job. But they're not so good that all these people continue to solo their ship with a bunch of NPC crew. Because they don't want to see a player running an Idris around with a bunch of capable NPCs holding up to a fully crewed player ship, because they're like, hitting the target every time and everything. So,
well, and I think they'll be able to dynamically respond to certain things, in all honesty, but I don't think they're going to be able to do near as much as what, like the level of proficiency, as I said before, that they'll be able to carry out a task. They might be able to respond to a fire in a certain room, but outside of that, I don't see anything further.
Well, they're not going to be capable of the problem solving and the logistical planning that a human's going to be doing.
And I would argue it's not the logistical, it's the anticipation. This is the awareness of the situation that you're in, and how that changes the priority list of what you should focus on. That if you program a general bot to do stuff, it's going to have a preset priority list that I do X before I do Y, I take care of Y before I take care of Z, and it's going to have that decision tree. And a human, even someone that's a brand new player, will have, with just a little bit of experience, is going to have a better idea of, no, this particular circumstances, I need to prioritize shield generator over life support. I need to prioritize, engine repair or the quantum drive repair over weapons. Does that make sense? And I don't think that they're ever going to be able to get it to a point where, any 15-year-old that has played the game for a week isn't going to be just as good, if not better, in most circumstances where it matters than the AI.
Yeah. I think definitely the humans are always going to be better, and they're going to, if their AI is better than a player, then they're going to write in flaws to make it more human-like, right? So that it's always an advantage to take your buddy along versus an NPC. But then this comes back to what Turn the past 2 weeks has always brought up, is that the most important role on the ship isn't going to be the pilot; it's going to be the person dishing out the orders,
the
right?
Commander. Yep.
Exactly, the commander. And this is the person that's going to be saying, telling the NPCs, do this, and prioritize this. So
potentially, I mean, again, but that puts you in a situation where it's you plus another person, because you're going to want a person flying the ship. You're definitely not going to want AI. AI is not going to think on their feet and be sneaky like a person will be as a pilot. Mm-hmm. And if you're running, particularly, let's say we're in a cargo ship or a mining ship and we're trying to run away from the bad guys, I would not want AI flying the ship. I would definitely, if I had a choice between the AI fixing stuff and the AI flying, I'm going to pick fixing stuff, as bad as I think they're going to be at prioritizing things. Because I think my pilot skill and trickery and, slowing down and letting them blow past me and then moving off in a different direction, trying to stay alive longer, is going to be better. Trying to think, outfox the bad guy, so I'm picking a quantum point that they may not have, or that, I pick it at the last second and then jump, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
thinking of it, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I thought you were done with your thought.
No.
Thinking about, I always run this scenario in the head. What does it look like on my Kraken, right? Because this is the ship that I'm going to center my gameplay around. In everybody on the bridge, I want to be a human.
Sure.
I'm a critical system like shields. Stick an NPC there and say, "Don't move, fix that whenever it breaks." Right. Yeah. The cargo, like moving cargo back and forth, from cargo, the cargo deck to the shops. Have NPCs do that, because at some point a human's going to get tired of that kind of work.
Sure. Or you have one guy go down and supervise all the 5 AI doing it, kind of thing. Here's the priority list, make it happen. I completely agree. AI is going to be helpful, or bots, whatever we want to call them. I'm just saying that in these critical situations where the pressure's on, you got to fix this in the next 5 minutes or we're going to ruin the evening's gameplay session. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be much happier having a human that I know can think outside the box and ask me questions and go, hey, I think we should fix this next, and me be able to, in the heat of battle, go, yeah, or no, focus on this instead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And that's where I think, people have this vision that they're going to be able to load up 20 AI on their ship, their Carrack, and they'll be able to just fly through space and be just as good as a fully crewed 100% human ship. And that's just not the case. We're just not there. And no matter how inexpensive Chat GPT-4 gets, it's not going to get down to a point where it's going to replace game engines in the next 10 years. It's just too expensive. Until you can get AI down to where it's, fractions of a fraction of a fraction of a penny to do that type of query they showed us on that YouTube video. it's just not going to be feasible for gameplay. It's cool. It's a neat tech demo. And that'll be games 10 years from now. But I don't see it being in games in the next 5 years. Anybody have any follow-up comments on that?
Yeah, well, I hope the AI is really good, because when we fight against the AI NPCs, I want them to be really good. So,
well, I think they'll be good. I just don't think
Yeah.
they will be anywhere near as good humans.
yeah, for sure, they shouldn't
And
be.
so, yeah, and that's the thing. And I think that they'll be really good. But here's the thing. The AI is going to be beatable. Okay? Because it's going to have a decision tree that it executes on. And so today you have some AI pilots that are decent. I mean, you don't pay attention and do what you're going to do, you get killed by the AI pilots today. You definitely can overextend yourself in a bunker and get schwacked by the AI today. And that's only going to get worse, I agree. But we learn what the AI will and won't do and how it operates. And, you can fight it very efficiently. And I don't see that changing. I think, even when they make it better, we're going to find the weak spots in the armor. And that's going to give us this huge advantage in my book as players over people that are by themselves with 5 AI trying to run a ship. Nam, what are your final thoughts on this, the AI pro cons?
Well, I mean, first off, differentiate AI, not AI, but NPC crew is separate from the AI, as we saw in that demo, which is
Yes.
more like a more intuitive voice attack system.
Yep.
Voice attack with extra steps is what that was.
Mhm.
And I think there's some
which
really
was cool.
It was cool. It was great. It was slow. The only thing you'd want to use that system for are things where time doesn't matter.
Not combat.
Not combat. Not ship function.
She was definitely lengthy in her responses.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, how are you doing today? Oh, okay, I'll fix that.
Yes. It was very cool. The thing about, hey, I'm near here and I'm in this ship. What are my best trading opportunities? That I thought was the most interesting thing that in the video. But I wouldn't rely on it to, I guess there's some stuff that you could use voice attack for that you could use this for because it's a little bit more pleasant. Like, hey, call the terminal and request landing so I don't have to worry about that. That's kind of neat. But I could do that with voice attack.
Mm-hmm.
So
it all comes back though to the data it's pulling though. I mean, you're asking it these questions, but it still has to have that information.
It does.
To give it to you. It has to have an API to hook into or something.
Correct, which means that you could buy a $40 fire or a $20 fire tablet and have a web GUI and pull that information up while you're flying.
Yep.
And it'd be a lot quicker. So we've kind of beat that into the ground. Let's talk about crisis management. Real time with their description of real-time damage and the need to do repairs while you're flying or fighting, I see that as a drastic shift in gameplay dynamics. Havoc, do you think this element will amplify or excitement and tension, or could it lead towards creating a lot of frustrations, especially for new players?
I think it has the capability to do both. I think a lot of people will be excited for it. I know I will. I think it will definitely create a lot of frustration and tension between some players if you can't figure it out together and work well as a team to get things fixed. I think it absolutely has the capability of both.
Our producer Jaglyn is raising her hand as she's worried about it frustrating her. Demo, what about you? Do you see this as something that's going to be hugely beneficial, or do you think that it is going to probably cause more frustration than it fixes things in a lot of ways?
Well, it's beneficial. I don't know. It's creating a gameplay loop for people that really are going to enjoy that kind of thing, and then some people are not. they're going to be frustrated by the fact that they have to find somebody to help them do this when they want to solo a big ass ship. So it's going to, I agree with Havoc. It's going to be both. All the above. And then, and it's not just fixing things. I mean, there's a lot of complexity that they're throwing at us right here.
Oh yeah.
Like the batteries on bigger ships. Like you have to decide, somebody has to be at a terminal deciding where the power goes to. Like if you're in a situation where you get interdicted, now you've got to make a decision quick.
Yep.
And
is it shields? Is it towards the engine? Is it towards weapons? What's the split? It's going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Nom, again, throwing it at you. Where do you think is the tension and the excitement? What's it going to be? More excitement or more frustration for new players?
Well, like the others, the answer is yes to both. I mean, it's
an all skate.
It's greatly going to depend on the ship you're flying and how many people you have with you at the time. Yeah. I mean, if it's like a little single seater or something where you don't necessarily you get into a hurried situation, you don't really have the time to go and do maintenance on it. You're frustrated that, you got this failing system, but you got to get to a safe place so you can get out and get your multi-tool on it or whatever like that. Versus maybe you got a ship that has good interior access to most of the systems and somebody on board who knows it. You're going to be okay. But to me, that's things working as intended. Unfortunately for the person that gets easily frustrated by that, I hope they don't make it too tedious on some levels. I mean, there has to be a little bit of wave the magic wand at some things when it ultimately comes down to, does that extra detail and extra stuff to deal with add to the gameplay and the enjoyment versus just making it more tedious, repetitive tasks. Hopefully they don't go in that latter direction.
Well, and here's going to be my comment on this before we move on to the next topic, and that is, I think that crisis management, let's be honest, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a new player that gets in, and they are going to die over and over and over again because their quantum drive fails in the middle of nowhere and they don't know what to do. And it'll be in a small single player ship, and maintenance. Think about how many times all of us, even experienced players, will leave a station and go, oopsie, I forgot my tractor beam gun and I need one. Or oopsie, from my perspective, this is, pushes people towards group play because this system is so complicated. You can't know everything yourself, and having other people to help you identify, things that are missing or things that you might have forgotten is going to be critical. Havoc, just as we talk about this, as we go around Robin one more time, do you see this pushing people towards group play with these dynamic real-time damages and crisis management, things like that? Or do you see it being no big deal, they'll figure it out over a couple playing sessions?
I think it's really going to push people to want to play as a group on a multi-crew ship. I think it's going to do nothing but get people interested in that style of gameplay more so than just going out solo and flying alone.
Well, and you're in the Marines right now in ADI. Do you see the fact that we have to perform maintenance on weapons and gear and things like that really impacting gameplay? I mean, how critical do you think it's going to be to take the time to check gear before you walk out the door?
Oh, it's going to be vital. I think it's going to cause a lot of hair pulling moments for me and for many other people that have to deal with the guy that says, my weapon's not working. I don't know what's going on. Well, did you check it? I didn't have a chance to.
I'm getting flashbacks here, man.
Yes, we all are. Dilma, what about you as we come back and finish up this portion of the topic? Do you see this as moving people towards group play more because of the damage and wearing of parts and oopsies and things like that? Or do you think it'll be no big deal and people fly around in big ships by themselves?
Yeah, I think it. I mean, this game is about group play, right? Like if we wanted a dumbed down game, we'd go play Starfield, where we just don't, we could just do it by ourselves, and all the other stuff happens by magic, right? That's why we love this game so much, is because of all the details that they're throwing in, and all these things. We need something to do when we're in quantum for 15 to 30 minutes. So,
Yeah. Well,
right? We'll have time to do this stuff.
And keep in mind, we're just in one system where it could take 15, 20, 30 minutes to go from one end to the other. When you're doing a large cargo run in a big ship, it may be 2 hours of quantum all added together over a 3-hour session. Yeah. So it's a real issue. Definitely going to want to keep spares on board your ship, even if it's a small ship. You're going to want to keep spares somewhere.
Yeah.
So looking to the horizon as we anticipate future systems and features like environment manipulation, base building, crafting, how do these additions stand to redefine the broader landscape of this game and games coming in the future, Demo?
Well, they have this beautiful engine that they put some nice branding on that other game studios are licking their chops at. They're looking at it and they're like, this is the future game engine that we all are going to want and build a game. We can think way bigger now. Yep. And they're going to build games around this. So, a huge impact.
You think this is going to have the sharded ability to have thousands of players, way bigger than New World is their hope. I think it's going to have a huge impact. Havoc, how about you? What with all of these base buildings and crafting and all these features that they discussed, how do you see that impacting the simulation game experience over the coming decade?
I think that all these games that are coming out with being space simulation focused, it's really going to just skyrocket a lot of interest in a lot of other companies saying, hey, I want to make something like that. And I think it's going to put a lot of those AAA game devs to shame, honestly. Excuse me, sorry. I think it's really going to put a lot of those AAA gamers or game devs companies to shame. And it's gonna make a lot of people scratch their head and wonder, why aren't other big studios doing this?
Yeah, because CIG is not a big studio today.
Exactly.
Now, in closing, how do you see this coming around?
Much the same way. I mean, that's the normal pattern, though. I mean, whenever something big and new comes out, the other developers take notice of that and say, well, how can we do better? Or something that catches people's attention. I mean, I know they were working on the face and the hair tech before for Star Citizen. They were improving it, but I have a feeling, the stuff they saw coming for Starfield before it was released, I think that probably pushed them to raise the bar on that a bit further than they were probably going toward to what we saw in the CitizenCon presentation. And same for the outpost building. I mean, which they saw what they did in Starfield. That you had to know they at least paid attention to it and took notes.
I agree.
So,
yep.
So others will pay attention to this when it comes out.
I agree completely. Well, I think that kind of covers that portion of our conversation, guys. I think right now we've been ignoring the elephant in the room, and that is Squadron 42. Nam, given the information from CitizenCon, because you were there, and your collective experience, when do you think Squadron 42 will launch officially? Give us a
when
date.
It will?
Yes, give us
when
a
it
date.
will?
Yes.
I don't have a clue.
Oh, come on.
What I think they want to happen is CitizenCon 2024. I think it's next October. I think next October is their target for releasing it.
Okay.
Either then, right before it, or right after, right about that time. I think that's when they're going to do their planning for their big marketing push for the release of Squadron 42. That's what I imagine, because they said it was feature complete, and right now it's just a matter of polish and to bring the the current scenes up to the tech to where it includes the new hair and facial features. They showed some side-by-side video of how much they improved those scenes. So they just got to go through all that backlog of content and update it to that level. And the usual stuff that happens to release a game, and then you release a fix for a lot of things the day after that release. But
Okay.
but that's yeah, I think that's their goal. It's just going to be we've had dates come and go before that didn't happen.
Well,
So
you notice
I'm not
how
going to
he
say
didn't
it will.
actually give us a date this time. So that's a marked improvement.
Yeah.
So-
October 2024 is what I'm expecting at this point, unless they fall on their face somehow.
Okay. Havoc, putting you on the spot, buddy. When is Squadron 42 coming out?
Depends on how much copium/hopium I've had.
Well, whatever amount you've had tonight. Give me I want a date.
If I am inhaling copium at this point, I'm going to go out on a limb and say September of 2024. I think that a lot of people saying, oh, it's not going to happen until 2025, probably halfway through 2025, if not late 2025. I think that they're just skeptical, and CIG is far more than capable to deliver it in that time frame. But yeah, I mean, my copium from CitizenCon was beginning of 2024, but I kind of reeled that back a little bit.
I don't think beginning of 2024 is feasible at this point. Dumma, putting you on the spot, brother.
Oh,
Give
I
me
got
a
a
date.
date for you.
Give me a date. When do you think it's going to release?
September 24th, which is my daughter's birthday.
Okay.
24, 42 backwards. 2024 at 4:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
That is awful specific. You need to write that down on a piece of paper, because I'm going to
No,
come
I got
back
it right here. I'm not going to forget it now.
Good. I
The
think
next conversation I get in with Todd Pappy, I'll say, "Hey, Pappy, you got to release it here."
Yeah, fair enough. So I think all of you are right. I think that it is fall of next year. I do not see it happening. The release window for optimal game release is gonna happen, is closing. By the end of February, you really don't want to release a game until September. Okay? Because the summer months are awful for a big AAA title game release. So I think the window is sometime after Labor Day and before Halloween. And that whatever weekend that they tell us they're doing Squadron 42, doing CitizenCon, and where CitizenCon is will be the big hint. If CitizenCon is in the United States the second year in a row, or is at Manchester, and they skip Frankfurt, then I think it's a sealed deal at that point that they've got a release date. And I think that they will try, if they're going to do it, I think they will try to release it at CitizenCon, and I think they will try to move CitizenCon as early into October, maybe even late September as possible to get into the holiday buying season. But I think the big trick here is if they skip Frankfurt for CitizenCon next year and they pick Manchester, or even bigger of a sign, picked doing it in Austin or somewhere else in the United States, that will be a gigantic hint that that's going to be a release party. So
I'm going to that one, by the way. If it's in Austin, I'm going.
Oh yeah. Well, I may go if it's in Manchester. I don't know about Frankfurt. But, does anybody disagree with my statement about if they change the order of where they're going with CitizenCons, particularly they either do it at the Manchester office or they skip Europe completely and go back to the United States? Does anybody disagree that would be a huge red flag that they're going to do the release?
No, I think that'd be a good tell.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, Dama, given the long awaited nature of this game. I mean, we've been here for 10 years. What do you think the chances are that the game is going to live up to all of the built up expectations? And do you have concerns that the expectations are so high for Squadron 42 that it could be a negative because people will feel like it wasn't as good as they imagined?
I found Star Citizen in 2020, so I'm still a spring chicken. I am very optimistic still.
Well, that's why we have you on here. You're a bubbly, optimistic person to begin with.
I didn't have to wait as long as some of you guys. I don't think it's going to be a disappointment based on what we saw at CitizenCon. I mean, holy cow, like it looked amazing, and now they're doing a polish pass, and I think the gameplay, given what we've experienced in the PU and now the added polish that they're putting on top of that and all these features, like it's going to be incredible. I don't see it disappointing. I think that people who hear about the persistent universe and what we can do in there might be disappointed because they don't realize that Squadron 42 is just single player. So they get in there, and then once they realize that, oh, I can go over and MMO this up, like I think it's gonna draw a lot of people in, and that there's going to be a lot of people joining the PU after that.
Hold on to that because we may be talking about that in a few minutes. Havoc, what about you? What do you think the chances are that the game is going to meet expectations or is going to fall short in the community's mind?
Well, on that note, I think that we have a basis already where people enjoy gameplay. Like, I don't think I've seen most people complain about Star Citizen's gameplay outside of server issues and NPCs not responding or general game bugs and whatnot. But the story could be kind of halfway decent to great, in my opinion, as far as how long they've had to write the story and get it right. And they haven't rushed it this entire 10 years. But I think that it's going to live up to most people's expectation and most normal people's level of hype. I'd say the select few that are way hyped about the game might be slightly disappointed, but like I said, the story can be kind of meh, and still people will play it because the gameplay is so much fun.
Look, 10% of people expectations are so off the chart that you wouldn't be able to make them happy if if it was VR jacked into the back of their head, they'd still complain and say it wasn't high enough fidelity.
Yeah.
No, and on that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and on that note, the only thing that would really kill it 100% is going to be game-breaking bugs that are in day one. Like if you have a few bugs here and there, yeah, exactly.
don't
game-breaking
pull
day one bugs would suck.
Don't pull a cyberpunk. Nam, what about you? What do you think the expectations versus reality looks like? And do you think they're going to meet or exceed the expectations?
I think they will. I think Cyberpunk didn't have the base of players like us testing various mechanics, and I don't see it being coming out the gate flat out broken. Especially since they don't have to deal with all the net code stuff when you have an MMO going. They're just having to deal with the single player and the world. I think it's going to work well. They got that part fleshed out. The story itself. I mean, I've talked to. You also got a large cast of really good actors in this show that have a standard that they hold up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of the lead actors here, they're not like starring in sci-fi films, the Sci-Fi Channel films. They have standards, and
they do.
They're not going to be in something that's half-assed. So I think this is going to rock. My expectations may be a little high, but I don't think I'm going to be too disappointed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about post-release. Historically, these single player games being released can really reshape the community. Do you anticipate seeing any shifts in player collaboration or organizational stuff after Squadron 42 releases? No.
Mainly from the influx of new people who they hear about Squadron 42, they get pulled in by the hype and enjoy the game, get familiar with mechanics, and then they find out there's an MMO behind this. And we're going to have a huge influx of newbies to teach them all the things we've learned over the years and to learn from them too. So it'll be a big rush. I mean, of new people coming in. That's the only way to put it.
Well, I completely
And I think that'll be
agree.
great.
And keep in mind, we're going to talk next about how the community integration and new players is going to impact orgs and things of that nature. But Havoc, how do you see do you think that the release of Squadron 42 is going to change the community, and how do you see that change impacting the community?
I think I see that change making a massive impact to the community, just simply for the fact that, you know, everything may not possibly be in Star Citizen at that time when they released Squadron 42. But all the players that have been playing it for years or the last few years will be able to go into a finished, polished, single-player game and see what the game might actually look like in the future. And I think that will definitely inspire and maybe interest more people into the game a lot more so than they currently are.
Okay, I agree completely. Sorry, guys, I'm typing messages to everybody.
Yeah.
Prepping
No
them
worries.
on what they're going to do next. So, Dumma, to you, how do you see this impacting and reshaping the community when they release the game?
Yeah, every big variety streamer is going to be streaming Squadron 42,
Yes.
and they're gonna love it. I mean, Osmond Gold watched CitCon and he wasn't aware of half of the things that were going on in the PU. Told Numbskull, "Oh, there's no loading screens," and
Yeah.
so this game is highly going to impress. You know, Nom made a good point. Like this thing is star packed. People are going to come just to see, you know, Gillian Anderson. And you know, and Mark Hamill and all these stars, and then they're going to find the PU, and it's just going to be another World of Warcraft scenario. And I keep telling people that I get excited, you know, I have conversations with people about this game and what it's like, and I liken it to, you know, World of Warcraft, how it started out pretty hardcore, but then it went mainstream pretty quick. And that's what this is going to be like. It's, you know, it's going to be an amazing Ready Player One universe where you can go and do anything and live a life within it, and eventually maybe even in VR. And yeah, it's going to go mainstream. I can see it in the next 10 years.
I see this potentially being as big as WoW was. It's that revolutionary. Guys, before we move on to the last two questions, it's currently 9:00 here in Central Land. If you have questions, comments, anything that you want us to discuss, we will have time for viewer questions at the end of this. So go ahead and start dropping those into chat, preferably in the live show channel on our Discord server, but also on YouTube. And we'll be answering some of those questions as we move on. Dumma, now I'm going to get into my favorite question of the night, which is Squadron 42 releases. We're going to see, I think you would agree, max influx of new users coming into Star Citizen from Squadron 42. Yes?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So how do you foresee the community adapting to that? And more importantly, what role do you see large organizations playing in this process of all this influx of new players?
Well, we'll get a lot of new players come in that will want to join, find an org, find a home that, you know, maybe don't have gaming communities, but we'll also see a number of gaming communities come and build their organizations. So we'll have, you know, large organizations that'll pop up overnight, and not to the size of ADI. That takes time, but, you know, there are large gaming organizations out there that already have 2,000 to 3,000 members, and they'll transition over. And so that'll be a really exciting time to see. You know, again, you saw the same thing, all these EverQuest guilds coming over to World of Warcraft and wanting to try the new hotness. And I was on Cenarius, where you had like 3 you know, hardcore raiding guilds and it was just overnight they were formed and doing their thing. So, and we're going to see that in Star Citizen as well.
I agree completely. Havoc, how about you? How do you see this mass do you believe there's going to be an influx of new players? And if so, how do you see that impacting the community and at a more granular detail, large organizations in that process?
I absolutely think it's going to cause a massive influx of players to come into Star Citizen, just simply for the fact of the single player should be an amazing single player game in many different ways. And I think that large organizations are going to be so capable of having a lot of manpower and a lot of capacity to get a whole lot of people into the group. And we're going to have plenty of examples of why they should be in a large group, and they get access to all these other resources they may not have in a small group, for example.
Well, I think that we have a lot to offer. Nam, what about you? How do you see a surge, and how do you see that impacting the community and to a certain extent large organizations, and how can those large organizations help these new players?
Well, obviously, like I said earlier, yeah, there's definitely going to be a huge surge. A large number of people are going to play the game and then find out there's an MMO behind it. That's great. And they'll already be somewhat familiar with some of the base mechanics. So that's a good thing there. The orgs, I guess it depends on their focus, but they'll have an opportunity to get new membership and guide those people. Can you hear me? Okay. There's a Dema, you have something to say on that?
Sorry, I was reading Dixon's question. I wasn't listening to what you were actually talking
Sorry,
about.
I was distracted by something there. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll answer Dixon's question here. He asks, how do you see the influx of people affecting the community at large from the casual versus strongly vested people, and will that cause a large clash? I don't think it won't create a clash. It might be really frustrating for those people, those casuals coming in. But I think if they find the right home, especially in ADI, where it doesn't matter what, I mean, one of our main rules is real life first. Like, we're all about hardcore casual. So, in this game is going to be so that you can, you can come in, do your thing. Maybe not right now because the startup experience is pretty long, but in the future, when you spawn back in, you might spawn back in on the capital ship owned by the org. That's running 24/7, and you come in and you can just get going. So I think it's actually a better experience for casuals in the future than it is now. So
okay, so I want to like piggyback off that, because you mentioned it with spawning on a capital ship that your org owns. Mm-hmm. I can't really think of how that would operate right now, but in the future, I can just imagine how nice it will be to just log in. You wake up on the capital ship, and you're in the spot where you want to be, and you're ready to get your group and go. And that to me is gonna propel the game forward, rather than let's all start on Orison and let's all meet up at this central location. No, it all just, you start on the capital ship, and that's where it begins. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, and I think even if that doesn't happen, because having a 24/7 shipping game is a huge undertaking. I'm not sure that any of the orgs are going to be capable of doing that day one, but I definitely see us having space stations that we own. And I definitely see them having, the ability for you to ship yourself offline between points that you've been to before. And I think that's what you're going to see happen is you're going to see, hey, you can, quote, fly as an NPC from Orison to, Seoul, and be delivered there overnight. And when you wake up the next day, your gear that you shipped and you are there and you're ready to play. So, sorry, guys, I had to step away for just a second. Go ahead.
See, it looks like the farthest point right now is Horus to Fora. I have the star map open that I've been working on.
Yes.
I would
I did
like to
have
see
something
that actually.
I did have something to add to all this here. Something I've been thinking about, a little thought in the back of my mind is all those people coming in. There's going to be the less honest groups out there looking to take advantage of the new people that don't know different things. I mean, what was that one thing that happened? Was it Eve or Elite Dangerous, where one group, they got a bunch of new people on board the carrier ship, took them out in the middle of nowhere, and they had nowhere to go. And they basically said, well, no, now you're going to be doing this for us. And they were basically hijacked slaves or something.
Oh my gosh.
Are we going to see scenarios like that where they're taking
Yes.
advantage of noobs, drawing them out to the backside of Pyro when they got nowhere to run?
Exactly.
Slave
We're
drivers.
gonna press gang a bunch of new players.
No, we
There's
are not
a new
doing
profession.
that. We are not doing that. For the record,
There's a
the
new
joke-
division.
Oh, not us. I'm saying if there's going to be groups like that.
Oh yeah, no,
The
no.
slave
That's not good for
drivers.
the game
They're-
long term. That's gonna sour a bunch of people on the game if that kind of thing happens.
There's going to be some of that. There will be no question about. Trust me, I've seen some of the orgs out there this week. Whew.
We can call it player acquisition. We don't have to call it slave something. That's not PC.
Here, we're shipping you out to this planet halfway across the verse in hostile space, and your job is going to be to make sure once a day that widget gets turned on
Oh my
correctly.
gosh.
And that,
There's going to be a station just for buying players. Be horrible. Horrible.
oh, I don't think they're going to let us do that, but that is hilariously ingenious. I think that, having large orgs are going to help train players. More importantly, it's going to provide a huge benefit to the community in that it will provide you with people to play with and teach you, because this game is not going to be easy to play. It's not easy to play today, and it's only going to get more complicated as they add in these management systems. So, I guess my question is one last question before we go to viewer questions. And again, guys, if you have viewer questions, please go to discord.hangarready.com and check on the live show, or post in YouTube chat your questions that we'll answer at the end of this. But here's my final question, and we're going to start with Nom. Nom, with Squadron 42's completion almost completed and attention headed towards the PU, what are your predictions for the next milestones or focus areas on Star Citizen? Where do you see the priorities shifting, and what do you think? Because we know they're shifting a lot of their programmers over to the persistent universe. What do you think the next few months are going to show us as far as improvements in the PU? No?
I think you're going to be seeing it at an accelerated pace. We've already seen a lot of things getting checked off on the progress tracker. Kind of the thing we only get kind of half see. It's not necessarily stuff we're seeing in the PU, but stuff they're working in the background.
Yep.
But we're seeing a lot of these progress. A lot of things right now are being marked as done by end of December. So I think we're going to be seeing a much higher rate of production than we're used to when it comes to knocking out some mechanics and introducing new things. It's not going to be something we've been used to over the past, 10 years or so, 11 years now.
Yeah, I see a very rapid increase in things getting checked off the list, and we see that. They got a lot more done this year than I anticipated they would, especially after the absolutely horrendous slow start at the beginning of the year. Basically unplayable for 4 months. Havoc, what about you?
318.
Yep.
I completely agree with what Nam said. I think it's going to drastically increase the rate of which they release patches and hot fixes. I think hot fixes honestly will be dropped like hotcakes, just because they'll have so many programmers that can just do bug fixes and focus primarily on issues that are largely game breaking or destroying players' experience. And considering they have 1,300 developers and 1,000 of them were on Squadron 42, that's going to drastically increase the amount of people working on new and upcoming features. I think base building will get fleshed out pretty freaking quick. Like we might see base building 2025. Fingers crossed.
I think we might see base building in 2024.
Oh, fair enough.
So, no, or excuse me, Dama, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm basing my answer here off of two things, and that's my experience as a software developer and work on these teams, and then CIG's track record for kind of how their year goes. Looking at the next after CitizenCon until like mid-January, because they kind of go on hiatus right before Christmas, and then after Christmas, they always have their planning sessions that they do. So their yearly planning. So it takes them a little time to get going up in the new year. And so right now they're probably all, the decisions have been made, or they're making the decisions on where these resources are going. Those teams are kind of getting together and figuring out how they're going to implement these changes and take this code base and introduce it into the PU code base. And so I think, it's going to be about Invictus in May is when we're going to see a poop ton of features come into the PU.
Yeah.
So I agree completely. I think we're going to see big movement over the next 12 months. And with that, we have finally covered all of CitizenCon stuff that we started out 3 weeks ago. I think we're going to go to some questions or comments here real quick, but I want to give a quick shout out really quick. Let me go ahead. There we go. We got chat up. Dixon said, hi, Jolly, and Jolly went back and said, hi, Dixon. Jolly is the deputy commander of ADI. He's been having some health issues, and it's wonderful to see him back. He would normally be on this podcast. He helped me start this podcast up 4 years ago when we started it, and we wish him the best and hope he is feeling absolutely wonderful and feeling better. And everybody, hearts and prayers out to Jolly and his family as he goes through this illness. Anybody want to comment on Jolly here real quick while I look for another question for us to?
Yeah, brother, it's good seeing you in chat, man.
100%.
Seeing here, yeah.
I hope you're doing all well for sure.
Okay, so Terrafon says, I'm not even a game company, and I start doing the air. Yes. Every time I think about Star Engine. Since that's your running buddy there, Dama, we'll let you take that one and comment on his.
I'm not going to say what he was doing to that Star Engine.
Yeah. He definitely wants to do something to it.
Yeah, he can, Star Engine's like a mom to him. So yeah, dude, Star Engine. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think everybody's face in here as I was talking, brought it up, and the branding that they're doing was like, Star Engine.
Yep.
Yeah. They're nailing it.
It's going to be a revenue center for them. Duras says they've been building, or they said base building for PU begins development next year, which tells me that Squadron 42 will be out before that. No, I don't necessarily know that it'll be before that, but probably. I mean, they're obviously switching a lot of focus from Squadron 42. There's hundreds of programmers that are being moved off of Squadron 42 and onto the PU. And I think that will have a positive impact as far as that goes. Nam, what are your thoughts in that space? Do you think we'll see base building next year potentially, or do you think it's really 2025?
I think we'll see a tier 0 of it at least. Maybe a tier 1. I mean, but I think we'll at least get a taste of it next year. But I don't think it's going to be tied in any way to Squadron 42's release. So.
I agree, but I think them freeing up programmers is helping.
Yes.
Havoc Cole Hunter says no life Star Citizen on release. I think he's indicating he'll have no life. Are you going to be joining him with no life once release hits?
Not 100% no life, but I will
As
not
much
be
as you-
going to
As
work.
much as your wife will let you.
Yeah, exactly. That there will be no work that week at all.
I have teenage daughters now that want nothing to do with me. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I'm getting close to that, Dama. So Dixon, who is one of our longest and most senior guys, he's a board member and is helping us as the executive officer. I could see a get off my lawn mentality when the horde of new people come through. What do you think? Do you think that there's going to be some of that? Oh, we've been here for 10 years. What are you whippersnappers doing? Or do you think that orgs that are able to come in and help are, and coordinate with these people are going to, get a lot of new cool members? Emma?
Oh, sorry. You mean?
Yes, to you.
I didn't hear my name.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course. This is why I love ADI, right? Like, you come in and you can find all kinds of things to do and members to do it with. We have trainings for that kind of thing. Like, I mean, I personally love taking people under my wing and showing them, like on Hydros' stream. That's what we do. We find out that somebody has never played the game before. We give them a game package and we tell them hop in the verse and come on. And we've had some really cool streams where people who never played the game before come in and they learn the ropes. And yeah, of course,
I see
there are going to be some orgs that are going to be like that, of course, but not ADI.
Course, not us. I see some big opportunities for our streamers to start collaborating with other streamers that haven't had experience in the PU and helping them show off the game. I think that's going to be a big community outreach thing that we can on. Havoc, how about you? Hold on one second. Yeah, how about you? How do you see this going over the course of a little bit of Get Off My Lawn? You just got done doing a training course 15 minutes before we started the stream. With a bunch of new players. Are you excited to see even more new faces showing up every week for those training classes?
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to start seeing a lot more people say, hey, I want to go do this training event or I want to do this op. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
But we don't have a lot of people interested currently, given that there's not enough to really be excited about at the moment. But yeah, I think it's going to drive a lot of people to be interested in doing more things for sure.
I agree. John says a ton of the IC reports that they've been contributing, including some that have been open for over a year, are now under investigation or fixed. Now, I know that you do a lot of IC reports and a lot of confirming them. Is that your experience as well, that you've been seeing a lot of movement in that space over the last few months?
I wouldn't say I do a whole lot, but I do enough to see a genuine uptick in both investigations and long running problems being fixed. One example is the hover quad that we've been living with that thing forever, being basically unflyable, spawning it on land, and suddenly the other day it was checked off as fixed. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know, but I mean, there's obviously a sign. There's a lot more hands involved in looking into these things that probably were distracted by Squadron 42 up till now. So that's definitely a pattern I've seen.
I do too. And then the last thing, and guys, remember, last call for questions, comments, and concerns. Jay writes, not me, another Jay. I think a lot of new players will want to see some of the big content that requires multiplayer and large organizations. I agree. I think that you're going to see a lot of new players that are going to want to see in-game content right away, and the quickest way to do that in a lot of cases is going to be to collaborate and become a member of a large org. Dama, what do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's going to be a lot of content, right? I mean, there already is, and they've experimented with different content types for missions and whatnot. And then you know, these are just experiments, and they're kind of perfecting the ones that they've done. And so the variety that they're going to be able to shove at us fairly quickly with the tools that they're building is, you know, right off the bat is going to be incredible. So I don't think there be any lack of content or game loops to play.
I agree. Nam, what about you? What do you think about lack of content or joining a large org so you can get access to some of the higher end content quicker? Do you think that's a viable mechanism?
Absolutely, especially for a lot of people coming into it individually. It's going to be interesting though, because we mentioned earlier, you're going to have these new streamers coming in, and a lot of those guys might end up standing up their own organizations right away, and they're going to have their own, bringing over their own players that follow them. But that streamer's not going to necessarily know any more about the game than they do. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to it.
Knowledge.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to throw this one over to Havoc. Zark, because Zark, we love you, but Havoc has to answer this. How do I join ADI, Havoc?
You can go to www.adiclan.com and follow the steps to join. It gives you every single step you need in order to get connected and join ADI.
I agree. Dixon, is that... Oh, wait. People are messaging me. Too many messages. While I'm trying to do stuff.
That was my at.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
I can't. I don't see his question, but go ahead and talk about his question and answer it.
Okay, yeah, we had actually two questions from John Reck, and I'll
okay.
I'll cover them both. I briefly saw that the Pyro system only had a few landing sites, and is CIG planning more? Yeah, in the preview we only got the 3 inner rings that we were able to go to.
Yeah.
We weren't able to go to the outer 3, so there's going to be a lot more places to go, and Pyro is huge compared to Stanton.
It's gigantic.
Yes. And so the other question they had was the production of Next. Is Nix the system? What's the prediction on that? Well, we have the jump gates already for Magnus and Terra in Stanton. I think they'll finish those 2 systems first, and then Nix is 1 jump away from Pyro. You can't get to it directly from Stanton. So I think that'll come after Magnus and Terra.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think that Nix will be the next system after Pyro. And the reason I think that is Odin and some of the other star systems that we know are in Squadron 42 all connect to Nix. And so I think they'll head that direction. That they'll give us Nix and then those other star systems, because those star systems are done.
Got it.
And so, I agree with you. They'll branch off and finish the rest of the Stanton systems. And it may come in very quick succession. I'm not saying it's going to be 6 months or a year before they add anything else, but my gut tells me they're going to tie Stanton and Pyro together. And then the next system that gets bolted on is Nix. And then some of the systems that Nix touches that we know are in Squadron 4.
I'm going to disagree with both of you and say I'm willing to bet that Nix and Terra and maybe even Magnus are already done.
Oh, I'm not. I want to be very careful. I am not saying they're
like
not
that prediction.
done. I'm saying that Nix, that we know Nix is kind of the center spoke of the Squadron 42 space.
Yeah.
And as soon as Squadron 42 releases, which it should release about the time they're ready to add something past Pyro, that Nix would be the next obvious choice with a couple of systems off of that. They may have more systems waiting in the wings that they bolt on over point patches or a couple of months or something. Completely agree. They've probably got 10 systems done, but I think that they'll have the polish done on Odin and some of those other systems that are branching off of Nix.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. Nam, what are your thoughts? Do you think Nix is probably sooner rather than later? Or do you think there's something else that's going to come before Nix and after Pyro?
Kind of with Havoc on, I think it's going to be Nix and Terra which order is a question, but I think if I can see the way they want to balance things. If they go Pyro, then they go Nix and the other systems. That's a lot of lawless stuff with not a lot of lawful space there. They'll probably want to have Terra too, because Terra ties into some of those systems too. So then if they have Terra in there too, then that'll have kind of a nice interconnection between those systems as they add the others in.
I agree.
I could see Terra and Nix being next after Pyro.
They're going to be
Which one's first? I don't know.
Higher priorities, I think.
Yeah.
But I think as soon as Squadron 42 releases or shortly thereafter, they're going to give us Odin. And to give us Odin, they're going to have to give us Nix. So.
Fair enough.
That's my 2 cents. With Grinnin says, being with a large org like ADI, we will be able to create a lot of our own content from raw material extraction and processing to base defenses. I agree completely on that sentiment there. Anyone want to add into that?
I'll expand on that because we've actually had a lot of conversations about that. So Hindrosa, Dora, myself, Grinnin, and Terrafon, we're the Kraken 5. That's kind of our name of our group. And the reason why the Kraken 5 is because we've talked a lot of, at least some of us have talked about what our gameplay is going to look like when game goes live. And it's going to be centered around, my Kraken, some of the other, Pioneer that Terrafon has, some of the other capital ships that we have. And really it's going to be about, the mining queen, Dora, getting the resources and then base building. And that's kind of where we're going to start. And we definitely don't want to give away any org secrets in that. So.
Okay. Well, guys, let's just go around the horn and say our closing thoughts. Nom, starting with you. What is your closing thought? We've been here at it for an hour and a half. And what's your highlight of the evening or your closing wisdom?
Hype for Squadron 42 and eagerly watching what they actually push out in the coming months. Hoping we're going to see an uptick in mechanics and starting to see that complete loop of everything we're going to be able to do to make this actually a fulfilling game. And yeah.
Okay, Havoc, how about you?
I agree with Num. I think that I honestly think that 2024 and 2025 will be the biggest years for Star Citizen, and I think a lot of people are going to be really interested and really keeping a very, very close eye on releases that CIG give us as far as the game. I think that's just going to get more people interested over time.
Real quick shout out to Dora the Destroyer. She was on the podcast 2 weeks ago with us and is in chat. If you guys haven't checked her out, she's part of our S5 team in ADI. She has a great stream. She streams 3 or 4 days a week. Check her out at Dora the Destroyer. You see the spelling on the screen, and hit her up on Twitch. She's got an absolutely great Twitch podcast or Twitch stream. Does a lot of resource gathering and runs a very cool mining information website. So check her out. Dama, what about you? What are your final thoughts?
Mine are a little more short term than these guys. Right now, if you haven't done it, plan what you're going to spend and what you're going to tell your wife or your significant other. The excuse for spending the money that you're going to spend during IE. So plan wisely. If you have a bunch of little ships, I encourage you to sell those and get a package. You get LTI and then, buy them into there. Like there's a whole strategy. There's websites that'll help you do that. So have fun during IE and do your thing. One last thing is I want to tell you is if you want a free ship, you're going to have a good chance of getting something for free. If you join us on stream December 15th, this is our annual Fight Elephant, and we'll be on Hindrosa's stream. I imagine that Dora we're going to try to figure out a way to, incorporate all of us into this. Dora starts streaming at 9 a.m. We're going to start streaming, I think, around 10 a.m. on the 15th. Every year we do this thing where we give away a crazy amount of goods. I think last year we had like 35 ships that we gave away, 130 some items altogether. We have CIG got in on it this year, and we have some big prizes from them as well. So come join us for that.
Okay, guys. I'm going to say it's been a wonderful 3 weeks. We're going to be back in the new year unless something major changes, breaking news or something, but we'll be back starting in January doing the podcast on a regular basis. And I really can't emphasize enough how much we appreciate you being on here. We've got a lot of content that we're going to be bringing and expanding on. We've got new streamers that we're starting to bring into the org that we're going to start working in, and a lot of content that we're going to be releasing in 2024. So look forward to seeing you guys next year. Obviously, if you're new to Star Citizen and you want some help or want to learn or just want to hang out with a bunch of cool guys, you need to check out Atlas Defense Industries. And do me a favor, like and subscribe Hangar Ready so that you get all of our content. Everyone have an absolutely wonderful holiday, and we'll see you after the holidays. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.